Their fingers almost touch. Eurydice's hand reaches through the half-light, warm skin fading to mist. One look. That's all it took to lose her twice. She doesn't scream. She whispers his name, just once, and the darkness swallows her whole. He lunges forward, but his arms close around nothing. How does the greatest love story ever told end with a single glance backward? Tonight, we walk the road between life and death, and learn why he turned. Every god warned him. Hades spoke the condition clearly: walk forward, never look back, trust that she follows. Orpheus agreed. He meant it, and still he turned. Was it doubt? Did he fear the gods had lied? Or was it something worse, something more human? The need to see her face one more time, whatever the cost. 3,000 years, and we still argue about that moment, because we know in our bones we would have turned too. This is not just his story. It's ours. Get comfortable now. Adjust your pillow, find your warmth. This story has been sung for 3,000 years, by firelight, by starlight, by the gentlest voices in the dark. If you drift off before the musician finds his way home, that's perfect. The muses won't mind. They've been singing mortals to sleep since the world was young. Our story begins in Thrace, wild, green, musical Thrace, where a young man sits on a hillside and plays a song so beautiful that the rivers pause to listen. Orpheus is the son of Apollo, god of sun and music, and Calliope, the muse of epic poetry. Divine blood runs through a mortal body. His gift is beyond anything the world has known. When Orpheus plays, the impossible happens. Oak trees uproot themselves and walk closer. Stones roll uphill to hear. Wild wolves lie down beside trembling lambs. Thunder stops mid-crack when he sings. Rivers change course to flow past his hillside. Even the wind holds its breath and waits for the next note. No mortal instrument has ever held such power. The lyre Apollo gave his son carries a fragment of divine fire, each string tuned to the harmony that holds the cosmos together. But for all his power, Orpheus is lonely. Music fills every silence except the one inside him. He plays for rivers and stones because no human heart has answered his. Eurydice appears on a spring morning. She's a dryad, a spirit of the oak woods, walking barefoot through wildflowers with sunlight tangled in her auburn hair. She hears his music before she sees him. The melody drifts through the trees like a living thing, and she follows it, the way flowers follow the sun, without choosing to. Their eyes meet across the meadow. Orpheus forgets the song he's playing. For the first time in his life, the music stops, and something better takes its place. He plays for her that evening, not to move mountains or tame beasts, but simply to make one woman smile. It is the most beautiful music he has ever made. Thrace is a land of wild mountains and welder music. Every shepherd carries a pipe, every river hums a melody, every wind knows how to sing. But Orpheus is different. Where other musicians play songs, he plays truth. His notes don't imitate birdsong. They speak the language birds were trying to learn. Apollo watches from the sun. His mortal son has surpassed him. The god smiles, the rare, complicated smile of a father outshone by his child. Calliope, his mother, gave him something Apollo couldn't, the muse's gift of story. Orpheus doesn't just play music, he plays meaning. Every note carries a world. The Argonauts knew his power. When Jason sailed for the Golden Fleece, he brought Orpheus aboard, not as a warrior, but as something more dangerous than any sword. The sirens sang to drown them. Their voices pulled sailors into the sea like hooks through flesh. Every man on the Argo leaned toward the water, except Orpheus. He lifted his lyre and played, not louder, purer. His melody wrapped around the siren's poison song and dissolved it like sunlight through fog. The crew blinked awake. The sirens fell silent. For the first time in their eternal existence, something outmatched them. Legend says one threw herself into the sea from shame. Orpheus returned from the Argo's voyage with stories that could fill a lifetime. But something was missing. Glory hadn't filled the silence inside him. Seasons turned. Orpheus wandered the oak forests of Thrace, playing for no one. His music grew sadder, deeper, more beautiful, the way lonely things always do. The Dryads heard him. Tree spirits who lived inside the oaks, they pressed their faces against the bark and listened. One Dryad listened longer than the rest. Eurydice, her name means wide justice, a strange name for someone so gentle. She tends the old oaks the way a mother tends children, with quiet devotion. She steps out of her oak on a morning when the light falls just right, when the boundary between spirit and flesh thins enough to cross. The music pulled her through. She follows his music through the forest for 3 days before she lets him see her. Each day she steps a little closer. Each day his songs grow warmer, as if the lyre knows. The moment they speak, something shifts in the world, not dramatically, softly. The way dawn arrives, one breath it's dark, the next there's color everywhere. He plays for her alone now. Not the cosmic music that moves mountains. Something smaller, truer. Songs about the way she tilts her head when she listens. She teaches him things music cannot. The patience of trees. The language of roots beneath the earth. How silence between notes matters more than the notes themselves. Days stretch into months. They walk the forest together from dawn to dusk, naming flowers that have no names, discovering paths that exist only for them. Love, when it arrives this completely, rewrites a person. Orpheus stops playing for audiences. The rivers and mountains can wait. He has found something they could never give him. When he asks her to marry him, he doesn't use words. He plays a song that contains every moment they've shared, and the promise of every moment to come. She says yes before the song ends. The forest erupts, flowers bloom out of season, birds sing in the dark, and somewhere on Olympus, even the gods pause to notice. The wedding is set for the first day of summer. All of Thrace prepares. Even the nymphs of river and mountain come bearing gifts of water and stone. Hymen, the god of marriage, is summoned to bless the union. He arrives late and his torch sputters. The flame hisses and smokes instead of burning bright. No one thinks to worry. The ceremony is beautiful despite the omen. Orpheus plays while Eurydice walks toward him through scattered petals. Her bare feet leave no prints, she seems to float. Their hands join across the altar. Orpheus's fingers tremble. He has held divine instruments, faced sirens, sailed to the world's edge. But nothing has ever shaken him like this. The feast lasts through the night. Wine flows, songs rise, and Orpheus plays until even the stars seem to dance. Eurydice laughs, the sound he'll chase into the dark. Dawn after the wedding. Eurydice walks through the meadow gathering flowers for their home. The grass is wet with dew. The world is impossibly, dangerously perfect. The snake strikes without warning. A viper hidden in the wildflowers. Its fangs find her ankle before she feels the grass part. Eurydice falls like a cut flower. The venom works fast. She calls his name once, Orpheus, her voice carrying across the meadow. By the time he reaches her, her skin is already cold. Hermes arrives to guide her soul. The winged god is gentle. He has done this 10,000 times. But even he pauses at the sight of Orpheus clutching her body, refusing to let go. A pale shimmer lifts from Eurydice's lips. Her shade, her spirit, the part of her that death claims. Hermes takes her hand as softly as one holds a candle flame. Orpheus holds her body until it's cold, then colder, then stiff. The meadow flowers close. The birds stop singing. Even the sun seems to dim, as if Apollo himself is grieving. Grief hits Orpheus like a physical force. It bends him double, drives the air from his lungs. The greatest musician alive opens his mouth, and no sound comes out. He doesn't speak for 7 days, doesn't eat, doesn't move from the place she fell. Rain comes and goes. He barely notices. The lyre lies in the wet grass, unplayed. Friends come. They bring food, blankets, words of comfort. Orpheus looks through them as if they're made of glass. Grief has carved him hollow. On the 8th day, he picks up the lyre. The first note he plays shatters every piece of pottery within a mile. The second note makes grown men weep without knowing why. He plays her death, not a song about it, the thing itself. Anyone who hears it feels the snake's bite, the cold spreading, the last breath leaving. It is unbearable, it is magnificent. The song reaches Olympus. Gods who have existed since before time feel something unfamiliar. A mortal's grief, so pure it cuts through their immortality, like a blade. Apollo descends to his son. The sun god, who has loved and lost 100 times, kneels beside Orpheus and says nothing. Some grief is beyond even a god's words. There is a path, Apollo whispers. A road the living are forbidden to walk. It leads beneath the earth to the throne of Hades. No mortal has ever returned from it. Orpheus looks at his father with eyes that have already decided. Apollo sees it. The same reckless courage that drives mortals to love in the first place. He cannot stop it. The ancient Greeks lived closer to death than we do. They buried their dead with coins on their eyes, payment for the ferryman, and believed the underworld lay just beneath their feet. Death wasn't distant. It attended every feast. The Greeks poured wine for the dead at dinner, spoke to ancestors as if they stood in the next room. The boundary was thin as breath. To lose someone you loved was to know exactly where they'd gone. Below, into the gray fields, drinking forgetfulness from the river Lethe. So close, so impossibly far. No wonder Orpheus refused to accept it. In a world where the dead are just below your feet, love demands you dig. Love demands you descend. Love demands the impossible. Storytellers 3,000 years ago understood this need. They'd lost people too. They invented Orpheus because they wished, desperately, that love could open any door, even death's. Orpheus walks south from Thrace. He carries nothing but his lyre and a skin of water. He eats nothing. Sleep comes in fragments against cold stones. Word travels ahead of him. The fisherman's wife in a coastal village says she saw him pass at dawn. A young man with empty eyes, walking as if pulled by an invisible chain. 3 weeks of walking brings him to Cape Tainaran, the southernmost tip of Greece, where the land itself gives up and surrenders to the sea and to what lies below. The entrance to the underworld smells of wet stone and something older. Something that existed before the first human drew breath. Cold air pours from the cave like an exhale of the earth. Orpheus pauses. Not from fear, from ceremony. He lifts his lyre and plays a single note into the darkness. It echoes down and down and down, as if the earth has no bottom. He descends. Each step takes him farther from sunlight, from birdsong, from the world of the living. The stone walls narrow. The temperature drops. Daylight becomes a memory. Sounds reach him from below. Whispers, moans, the shuffle of countless feet. The dead are everywhere, flowing toward the same destination like water seeking its level. The shades of the dead drift past him, translucent, blank-eyed, forgetting who they were with every step. They don't notice the living man among them. They don't notice anything anymore. Fear grips him like cold water rising. Every instinct screams to turn back, to climb toward the light, to be alive. But Eurydice is below, so below is where he goes. The tunnel opens into a vast cavern. Below him a black river stretches from wall to wall, the Styx, boundary of no return. On its bank, 1,000 souls wait in silence. Charon sees him immediately. The ferryman has carried the dead since the world began. He knows living flesh when it stands before him, his hollow eyes narrow. No living soul crosses my river. Charon's voice is dry as dust in a sealed tomb. He has refused heroes, kings, and demigods. His law is older than Olympus itself. Orpheus doesn't argue, doesn't beg. He lifts his lyre and plays. The first notes spread across the black water like rings from a dropped stone. Ripples of pure sorrow. Charon's pole slipped. The ancient ferryman who has never trembled, who carried the first human soul across this river, feels something crack open inside his chest. The ferryman extends his hand. He doesn't speak. He doesn't need to. The music has said everything. Orpheus steps aboard, and the boat moves into darkness. On the far bank, the gates of the underworld rise like frozen screams in stone. Cerberus crouches before them, 3 heads snarling, each one large enough to swallow a horse. The beast lunges at Orpheus, all 3 jaws snapping, hot breath reeking of old bones. Orpheus doesn't flinch. He changes his melody to something softer. One head droops, then another. The third fights longest, growling, snapping weakly, before it too surrenders. The three-headed guardian of death curls at Orpheus's feet and sleeps. Beyond the gates, the underworld unfolds like a kingdom built from shadow. Gray plains stretch in every direction. The light here comes from nowhere and illuminates nothing. Shades crowd around him as he walks, drawn by the music, drawn by the warmth of living blood. They reach translucent hands toward him, trying to remember what heat feels like. Tantalus stops, reaching for water that flees his lips. Sisyphus pauses and lets his boulder rest. The eternally punished forget their torment, listening to the living man's song. The Furies, those terrible goddesses of vengeance whose faces drive mortals mad, lower their whips. Tears streak down cheeks that have never known anything but rage. Every step Orpheus takes in the underworld is a miracle. Living music in the land of silence. Warm breath in the kingdom of cold. Love walking where love is forbidden. The throne room of Hades appears through the mist. Pillars of obsidian rise into darkness. Cold fire burns in iron braziers. Two thrones wait at the center, one dark, one touched with spring. Hades sits like a mountain, immovable, eternal, patient as stone. His wife Persephone sits beside him, flowers dying slowly in her dark hair. Both stare at the living intruder. "Speak," Hades commands. His voice fills the chamber the way darkness fills a cave. "No mortal has stood here and lived. Make your words count." Orpheus lifts his lyre. He doesn't deliver a speech or beg for mercy. He plays. And what comes from the golden strings is not music. It is the sound of his heart breaking. He sings of the meadow where they met, the way she tilted her head, the wedding where the torch wouldn't light, the snake, the scream, the silence after. He sings that love and death are the same kingdom, and every soul in this dark hall knows both. Even the god on the throne, even the queen who winters here against her will. Persephone weeps. She knows what it means to be torn from someone you love, ripped from her mother every autumn, dragged below the earth. Orpheus's grief mirrors her own. She turns to Hades. The god of death stares at Orpheus, and something no one has ever witnessed happens. A single tear falls from the eye of the Lord of the Dead. The tear falls from Hades's cheek and strikes the obsidian floor. Where it lands, a tiny crack forms, the first imperfection in the underworld's eternal stone. Silence floods the throne room. Even Orpheus stops playing. The dead hold their breath, an impossible thing, yet they do it. Everyone waits for the god of death to speak. Hades closes his eyes. When he opens them, something ancient and reluctant moves behind that dark gaze. Not compassion exactly, but recognition. He is loved, he remembers. Persephone places her hand over her husband's. The queen of the dead touching the king of the dead. A gesture so small it could move worlds. And it does. "I will grant what no god should grant." Hades's voice fills every corner of the underworld. The dead shudder. The rivers pause. The laws of eternity bend, just slightly, for love. Your wife's shade will follow you from this place. You will walk the ascending path toward the light of the living world. She will walk behind you. But hear my condition. The god's voice drops to something colder than the Styx. You must not turn to look at her, not once. Not until you both stand in the light of the sun. If you turn, even for a heartbeat, she returns to me forever. There will be no second chance, no third song. Death does not negotiate twice. Orpheus drops to his knees. I swear it. I swear on my father's light and my mother's art. I will not look back. The words taste like iron, like a promise that already knows its own breaking. Hades nods once. The gesture carries the weight of every funeral since the first human died. He turns to the shadows behind his throne and calls a name. Eurydice. The name echoes through the fields of asphodel, through the groves of the blessed, through every dark corner of the underworld. The dead pass it along like a whisper. She comes. From the gray fields, a figure separates from the endless procession of the dead. She limps, the serpent's wound still fresh on her ankle, even in death. Orpheus hears her approach, the soft shuffle of bare feet on stone. His whole body screams to turn around. Every muscle in his neck strains. He stares at the wall ahead and trembles. Hades commands, "Walk forward. Do not stop, do not speak to her, do not look back. The path will take you to the surface. Trust your ears, deny your eyes." Orpheus takes the first step. Behind him, close enough to touch, too far to reach, Eurydice follows. The ascent from death to life begins. The tunnel narrows. Stone presses close on every side. Orpheus's shoulders brush the walls. The only sounds are his footsteps, the scrape of his lair, and behind him, something softer. He plays as he walks, not for power or persuasion, but to fill the silence. Without music, the doubt would devour him. Each note says she's there, she's following, trust. The path climbs. Steeply at first, then gradually. Time loses meaning underground. He could have been walking for minutes or hours. The distant light ahead doesn't seem to grow. Doubt arrives like poison, slow and sweet. A thought he can't unthink. What if Hades lied? What if no one follows? What if he's climbing toward sunlight with nothing behind him but empty air? He strains to hear her footsteps. The tunnel swallows sound. His own heartbeat drowns everything. He stops playing for a moment, listens, and hears only his own breath echoing. He resumes playing. The music steadies him the way a rope steadies a climber. Note by note, step by step forward. Always forward. The light grows barely, but it grows. Behind him, Eurydice reaches for his shoulder, her translucent fingers stopping just short of touching. She wants to say his name, to reassure him, but Hades said no speaking. She walks in his music like walking in warm rain. Each note brings color back to her edges. Her hands grow less transparent. The wound on her ankle begins to close. The path levels. Orpheus feels warmer air on his face, a breath from the living world above. Somewhere up there, birds are singing. Somewhere up there, the sun is shining. Hope is dangerous. Hope makes his fingers falter on the strings. Because hope asks the cruelest question: what if it's real? What if she's truly there, alive again just behind him? He thinks of the meadow. Wildflowers and morning light, her laugh. The way she'd run barefoot through dew and call his name like it was a song itself. That memory nearly breaks him. His stride falters. His head starts to turn, just slightly, before he catches himself. Not yet. Not yet. The light is growing, almost there. The tunnel widens. The stone beneath his feet transitions from smooth obsidian to rough natural rock. Earth replaces underworld. He's crossing back into the realm of the living. Water drips from the ceiling. Real water, not the black rivers of the dead. It falls on his face and he gasps. Cold, clean, alive. He'd forgotten what alive tasted like. The light ahead takes shape now, no longer a pinpoint but a pale oval. The cave mouth. The surface. Freedom. His heart hammers so hard his ribs ache. 50 steps. He counts them. 49, 48. Each one a small victory. Each one an agony of not turning. The lyre plays itself now. His fingers move from muscle memory. Behind him. A breath. A whisper. A stumble on loose stone. Every nerve in his body ignites. She's there. She must be there. But what if she isn't? 30 steps. The cave mouth is close enough to smell. Grass and salt air and the memory of rain. The world of the living reaches for him with invisible hands. 20 steps. Warmth on his face. Birdsong reaching his ears. Real birds singing real songs in real sunlight. After hours in the land of the dead, it sounds like paradise. 10 steps. His foot crosses from stone to earth. One foot in the underworld, one in the land of the living. He straddles the boundary between death and life. 5 steps. 4, 3. Sunlight floods his body. He can feel the heat on his arms, his chest, his closed eyelids. He is almost free. They are almost free. And here is where the ancient story holds its breath. Here is where 3,000 years of listeners lean forward. Because what happens next defines what it means to be human. Orpheus feels the sun on his face. He hears the wind. He smells the sea. Everything real, everything alive, everything he crossed death to reclaim. One more step and. But behind him, is there a footstep on stone? Or is it silence? Is she crossing the threshold? Or is he alone? The question burns through him like the viper's venom burned through her. Trust. Haid said trust. But trust is a muscle, and grief has broken his. How can a man who held his dead wife in his arms trust that death keeps promises? He thinks I have walked through the land of the dead. I have sung the Lord of Darkness to tears. I have done the impossible. Surely I have earned the right to look. Love makes the decision before his mind does. His body turns. His eyes seek hers. And for one perfect, devastating fraction of a second, he sees her, Eurydice, standing in the half-light, more real than she's been since the meadow. Her auburn hair catching the glow. Her green eyes, alive, aware, and full of something worse than anger. Understanding. She looks at him with understanding, as if she always knew he would turn. As if the man she loved was exactly the kind of man who could not help looking back. The fading begins at her feet. Her toes dissolve into mist, then her ankles, her knees. She reaches for him, fingers stretching, and her hand passes through his like smoke through air. She speaks one word, his Orpheus. Not a cry, not a curse, a farewell. And then the darkness takes her back, and the cave mouth seals like a wound closing. Orpheus claws at the stone until his fingers bleed. He screams her name into the sealed rock until his voice cracks. The mountain doesn't answer, it never does. He plays every song he knows against the sealed stone. The mountain trembles, trees uproot, rivers change course, but the gate to the dead does not open again. Music has limits, even his. Days pass. He sits at the sealed cave mouth, playing softer and softer, until the songs become whispers, and the whispers become silence, and the silence becomes the rest of his life. The Greeks who first told this story knew music the way we know electricity, as a force that shaped the world. Their word for music, musiki, meant every art the muses touched. Pythagoras believed the planets made music as they turned, a harmony of the spheres that human ears had simply forgotten how to hear. Orpheus, they said, remembered. If music held the cosmos together, then Orpheus challenging death wasn't madness. It was logic. The same harmony that turned the stars could surely unlock the gates of the dead. For ancient listeners, Orpheus's failure wasn't about weakness. It was the tragedy of a force that can reshape everything, except the human heart that wields it. Picture the storyteller reaching this moment 3,000 years ago. The fire crackling. Every listener knowing what's coming, and still hoping that this time he won't turn. Orpheus eventually rises from the sealed cave. He doesn't walk toward home. He walks toward nothing. A man without direction, without purpose, carrying a lyre he no longer wants to play. The world looks different now. Colors are duller. Food has no taste. Music, even the wind's music, even the river's song, sounds like mockery. He has been to the place where all songs end. He wanders for months, through valleys and over mountains. Across rivers he once bent to his will. The fish still gather when he passes, but he has no songs for them. Sleep brings her face. Every night Eurydice appears behind his eyelids, reaching for him, dissolving, whispering his name. He wakes grasping at air. Every dawn is a fresh loss. Other women approach him. Nymphs, mortal maidens, even minor goddesses, drawn by his beauty and his sorrow. Orpheus refuses them all. His heart is a sealed tomb. I have loved, he says simply, when they ask why. I have loved, and there is no room in me for anything else. It isn't a boast. It's a diagnosis. Word of his refusal spreads. The nymphs grow hurt, then angry. A musician who refuses love, a son of the muses who rejects beauty, feels like an insult to nature itself. Orpheus retreats to a barren hilltop in Thrace. No trees, no water, no life, just rock and wind. He sits and plays, finally, for the first time since the cave. But the songs are different now. These songs don't just move nature, they tear it open. Trees rip from the earth and walk to him, roots dragging through stone. Rocks crack themselves free and roll uphill to listen. A grove grows around him on the bare hilltop. Oak and laurel and cypress, planted by nothing but sound. Even the earth can feel heartbreak when it's played this purely. Animals gather again. Wolves and deer, eagles and serpents, predator beside prey. His sorrow is so vast it creates a temporary peace. Nothing can hunt while this music plays. He plays through seasons. The grove blooms and withers and blooms again around him. His hair grows long and wild. His face thins. He is becoming less a man and more a force of grief. The Thracian women watch from the valleys below. They hear his music floating down from the hilltop and feel their own hearts breaking. Some weep, some grow angry, some do both. Among the women who listen, some are followers of Dionysus. The Maenads, the wild ones, crowned in vine leaves and drunk on divine frenzy. They dance to a different god's rhythm. Dionysus and Apollo. Ecstasy and order. Frenzy and harmony. The Greeks knew the gods didn't always agree. Their followers disagreed even more violently. The Maenads call to Orpheus. "Come down, musician! Join our dance!" Dionysus offers joy where Apollo offers only rules. "Let go of your dead love, Lev!" Orpheus doesn't answer. Doesn't look their way. His silence is not defiance. It's simply that nothing in the world of the living can reach him anymore. He belongs to his grief. The rejection stings like acid. The Maenads are not accustomed to being ignored. Their god is desire itself. To refuse Dionysus is to refuse life, and refusing life has consequences. Dawn comes red over Thrace. Orpheus plays on his hilltop, unaware that below, the Maenads are gathering. Their dance has shifted. What was celebration has become a hunt. They climb the hill. The first stone flies before they reach him, hurled by a Maenad whose eyes are no longer her own. Dionysus moves through them like fire through dry wood. The stone veers. Orpheus's music catches it midair and turns it aside. The melody is a shield as well as a song. More stones follow. The music deflects them all. But the Maenads are screaming now. Their shrieks rise and rise until they drown out the lyre. When the screams overwhelm the music, the stones begin to land. Orpheus doesn't run. Perhaps he can't. Perhaps he doesn't want to. Perhaps, somewhere deep in his broken heart, this is the reunion he's been waiting for. The Maenads reach him. What happens next, the ancient poets describe only in fragments. Some horrors are too sacred, or too terrible, for complete telling. His body breaks. The hands that played gods to tears, the voice that outsang sirens. The heart that walked into death for love, all undone by mortal rage wearing a god's mask. But then, something the Maenads don't expect. Something that makes them stumble back in horror and awe. The severed head of Orpheus opens its mouth and sinks. The head rolls down the hillside, still singing. It reaches the river Hebrus, and the current catches it, carrying it downstream, mouth open, voice unbroken, calling one name over and over. Eurydice. The name flows downstream with him. Past villages where fishermen drop their nets to listen. Past temples where priests fall silent. The dead musician outsings the living. The lyre drifts beside him, faithful to the end. Its strings vibrate in sympathy with his voice, accompaniment that needs no hands. The river becomes a concert hall for the dead. The Hebrus carries him to the sea. Salt water mingles with the fresh. The head bobs on waves now, still singing, crossing from river to ocean, from Thrace toward the island of Lesbos. On Lesbos, the fishermen hear singing from the waves. They wade into the surf and find him. A head still singing, a lyre still playing. They carry both to a cave and build a shrine. The head becomes an oracle. Pilgrims come from across the Greek world to ask questions of the dead musician. His answers come in song, and they are always true. Apollo, watching from the sun, finally acts. His son has suffered enough. The god descends to Lesbos and silences the head, granting Orpheus the one thing he could never achieve alone: peace. The lyre Apollo takes to the heavens. He sets it among the stars, a constellation that will play forever in the night sky, where even grief becomes beauty when seen from far enough away. But what of Orpheus's shade? Where does the greatest musician go when death, which he once defied, finally claims him completely? The answer is the ending this story has been walking toward. Charon doesn't ask for payment this time. He simply gestures Orpheus aboard. Even Cerberus lowers all three heads as the musician passes. The underworld remembers. Orpheus walks the gray fields of asphodel, searching. His shade moves among millions, faceless, forgetting, lost. But he doesn't drink from the Lethe, he refuses to forget. He searches among the dead the way he once searched among the living. Through fields of gray wheat that grows but never ripens, past rivers that flow but carry nothing, calling her name. And then, across a meadow of pale asphodels, a figure turns, auburn hair now silver as moonlight, green eyes now soft as mist. But the tilt of her head is the same. They walk toward each other. No rush. There's no hurry in the underworld. Eternity stretches in every direction. They have nothing but time. They reach each other. They don't speak. Orpheus looks at her. This time there is no condition, no God's warning, no darkness waiting to reclaim her. He looks, and she stays. And in the land of the dead, two shades embrace and hold on forever. Hold that image, two shades embracing among the asphodels. Let it settle like snow on still water. Because this ending is also a beginning. Every myth has a life after its final line. In the underworld, the reunited lovers walk together now. Side by side through the gray meadows, through the pale groves, along the black rivers. Orpheus finally has what he crossed death to find. Sometimes he walks ahead. Sometimes she does. And when he looks back, as he does often always, she is there. She smiles. The condition no longer applies. Death has no more rules for them. The other shades notice them. In a realm of forgetting, these two remember. They speak each other's names. They hold translucent hands. It is the strangest thing the dead have seen. Persephone visits them. The queen of the dead sits with Eurydice among the pale flowers and speaks of things only women who have been taken from the world can understand. Hades watches from his throne. The god who bent his own law watches its consequences unfold. Does he regret? Gods don't regret. But sometimes, late in the underworld's eternal night, he wonders. Above the underworld, the living world carries on. But something has shifted. The story of Orpheus spreads like fire through dry grass. Every Greek city, every harbor, every hearth. Mothers tell it to children at bedtime. Poets recite it at symposia. Priests debate its meaning in temple courtyards. What does it say about love, about death, about the distance between obedience and desire? The question always comes back to the turn. Why did he look? He was so close. The sun was on his face. Freedom was one breath away.
Why?
Some say fear. He feared the gods had tricked him, given him silence instead of a wife. A man who has been broken once will hear cracking in every quiet moment. Some say love. Not weakness but its opposite, love so fierce it refuses to be cautious. A man who would walk into death for one person will not walk out of it on trust alone. Some say fate. The gods set an impossible condition because the dead are not meant to return. The test was designed to fail. Orpheus was doomed the moment Hades said yes. The most painful reading. He succeeded. The condition was met. And then his love undid it. Not the gods' cruelty, but his own humanity destroyed the miracle he'd earned. All of these are true. All of them miss the point. The turn isn't a puzzle to solve. It's a mirror to look into. What would you have done? Be honest. Be brave enough to be honest. Let that question rest now. It doesn't need an answer tonight. Some questions are meant to be carried, not solved. The way you carry a song you can't stop humming. The Maenads who killed Orpheus face their own aftermath. The divine frenzy fades like wine wearing off. And they find blood on their hands that won't wash clean. Dionysus, some say, punishes them, turning them to oak trees rooted forever where they danced. Others say they simply scattered, haunted by the music that stopped because of them. The grove Orpheus planted with grief, music still stands on that Thracian hilltop. No bird sings there. No animal enters. The trees grow in a perfect circle, guarding an absence. On Lesbos, the shrine around his singing head becomes sacred ground. Pilgrims leave lyres and love poems at the entrance. The island grows famous for poetry, and it stays famous. Centuries later, A poet named Sappho will be born on Lesbos. Her love poems will burn with the same fire Orpheus carried into the dark. Some legacies don't need explaining, they just continue. The Muses mourn their nephew. Calliope, his mother, collects what remains of his body and buries him at the foot of Mount Olympus, where the gods can watch over his rest. They say nightingales sing sweeter near his grave than anywhere else in Greece. The birds who once gathered to hear him play now sing for him. The student has become the inspiration. The constellation Lyra rises every evening. 7 stars forming the shape of a lyre. The instrument that crossed the boundary between life and death and changed both forever. Sailors use it to navigate. Lovers point to it and tell each other the story. Children ask their parents why there's a harp in the sky. And the answer is always the same. Because someone loved too much to stop singing. Below the stars, below the earth, Orpheus and Eurydice walk the asphodel meadows. He no longer plays. He doesn't need to. Her hand in his is the only music that matters. Sometimes the other shades gather around them, drawn not by music, but by something rarer in the underworld warmth. 2 souls who chose each other across the widest distance there is. Eurydice tilts her head the way she always did. Orpheus notices. And for the first time in what feels like forever, something moves in his chest that isn't grief, it's gratitude. Above them, the stars turn. The Lyra constellation crosses the sky in its eternal arc. Below them, 2 lovers walk. The myth breathes in and out, like something alive. Rest here for a moment. Let the story settle around you the way night settles around a mountain. There's more to tell. About what this myth means, about why it won't let us go. But those thoughts can wait. For now, just breathe. The ancient Greeks had a word for this kind of peace, hesychia. Stillness after the storm. Quiet after the song, let it hold you. Now let the story open wider, like a night sky revealing more stars the longer you look. Orpheus's myth didn't end in ancient Greece. It traveled, it transformed, it refused to die. The myth is older than any written version we have. Before Homer, before alphabets, Orpheus existed as a voice in the dark, passed from mouth to ear across generations of firelit nights. Each teller changed it slightly. A fisherman on Lesbos gave Orpheus rougher hands. A priestess in Delphi made Eurydice fiercer. A grandmother in Athens softened the ending for her grandchildren. The Orphic mysteries grew around his name, secret religious rites practiced across the ancient world. Initiates believed Orpheus had learned the secrets of death and brought them back. They wore white, they refused meat. They carried small gold tablets inscribed with passwords for the afterlife. Instructions Orpheus supposedly brought back from his journey underground. Think about that. A love story so powerful it became a religion. People restructured their entire lives around one man's refusal to accept that death was the end. The Romans inherited the story and made it their own. Virgil gave it weight. In his hands, the myth became a meditation on the cost of art, what the poet sacrifices for beauty. Ovid told it differently, faster, sharper, with the cruel precision of a man who understood that love stories are also horror stories. His Metamorphoses gave us the version most people know. Ovid added a detail Virgil left out: Eurydice's reaction when Orpheus turns. She doesn't scream, she doesn't curse, she says one word, farewell, and fades. The cruelty is in the gentleness. Rome fell, libraries burned, empires crumbled to dust, but the story of Orpheus survived, copied by monks who couldn't read Greek, preserved in manuscripts they didn't fully understand. Medieval Christians found Orpheus familiar. A man who descended to the land of the dead and returned, who conquered death with love. They saw their own story reflected in his. In medieval cathedrals you can still find Orpheus carved in stone, playing his lyre among animals, a pagan musician given sanctuary in the house of a newer god. The Renaissance rediscovered him with wild enthusiasm. Painters and sculptors competed to capture the moment of the turn, that fraction of a second when love destroys its own miracle. Rubens painted the frenzy of the Maenads. Poussin painted the snake in the meadow. Titian painted the shade of Eurydice receding into shadow. Each artist found a different wound in the same story. Then came opera. In 1600, a composer named Monteverdi did something revolutionary. He told the story of Orpheus entirely through music. It became the first great opera. The poetry of the choice was perfect, a story about the power of music, told through the power of music. Orpheus's song to Hades became an aria. The turn became a crescendo, the loss became silence. Gluck wrote his own version 60 years later. His Orpheus sings, "She far sends a Eurydice. What shall I do without Eurydice?" And 200 years later, that melody still makes audiences weep. Orpheus has been rewritten more times than any myth in Western history. Over 70 operas. Hundreds of paintings. Countless poems. Each generation finds something new to say about looking back. Rilke, the German poet, reimagined Orpheus as the voice of transformation itself. In his sonnets to Orpheus, the musician becomes the universe singing to itself. Breathing, changing, dying, returning. Tennessee Williams put Orpheus in the American South. His play made the musician a wandering guitarist and Eurydice a trapped woman in a small town. Same story, different accent, same heartbreak. Marcel Camus brought Orpheus to the Carnival of Rio de Janeiro. Black Orpheus, 1959. Guitar instead of lyre, samba instead of hymns. Death wearing a skeleton mask in the dancing crowd. Nick Cave sang about him. Annex Mitchell turned him into a Broadway musical. Sarah Ruhl wrote a play where Eurydice is the hero, not Orpheus. The myth belongs to everyone now. Every version asks the same question the Greeks asked 3,000 years ago, sitting by their fires, holding their wine. Why did he look back? And the answer keeps changing. Because we keep changing. Breathe. Let those centuries settle. The story has traveled far, from cave paintings to concert halls, and it's still walking, still singing, still refusing to let love end at the grave. Back in the underworld, where time doesn't pass so much as pool like still water, Orpheus and Eurydice exist in a different kind of forever. Not the forever of stars. The forever of two people choosing each other. Orpheus sometimes hums. Not the music that moved gods, something quieter. Songs without words, melodies that belong to no one. Sounds that exist purely because two people are together. Eurydice tells him about the oak forest she came from. The way the bark felt against her spirit's skin. The slow language of roots. The patience of growing one ring at a time. He listens the way he once played, with everything he has. Because this is what music taught him. Finally, that listening is the other half of love. The half he learned too late for the living world. The shades of Tantalus and Sisyphus sometimes pass nearby. Their punishments resumed after Orpheus's music faded. But something lingers. A memory of the moment they were free. The Furies keep their distance. Those goddesses of vengeance who wept at his song, they circle the couple's meadow, but never enter. Even punishment respects what Orpheus built here. Seasons don't change in the underworld. But something does change slowly around Orpheus and Eurydice. The gray asphodels near them bloom a shade warmer, almost cream, almost gold. Persephone notices. She tells Hades. The god of death looks across his gray domain at that tiny patch of warmth and says nothing. But he doesn't stop it. Even gods can learn to allow. Above, the world keeps turning. New loves form and break. New songs are written and forgotten. New children hear the name Orpheus for the first time and lean closer. Each new listener wonders the same thing: could I have resisted looking? And each one, in the privacy of their own heart, admits the same truth. No, none of us could. That's the myth's secret power. It doesn't judge. It doesn't say Orpheus was weak or foolish. It says this is what love does. This is what it costs, and it's still worth it. Let that thought warm you. Settle deeper into wherever you're resting. The story is nearly told, but like all great stories, the ending isn't really an ending. It's an echo that goes on. Above the underworld, above Greece, above the spinning earth, the constellation Lyra crosses the night sky. 7 stars, 1 layer. An instrument that played death itself to tears. Below the stars, the night is gentle. Warm air moves through olive groves. The sea whispers against the shore. Somewhere in the distance, a nightingale sings, and the melody sounds familiar. Rest here. The story is holding you the way the night holds the earth, completely, gently, without asking anything in return. Just rest. The first person to tell this story, whoever they were, wherever they sat, was probably grieving. Orpheus was born from a real human need, the need to believe that love doesn't end when the body does. Myths aren't invented, they're discovered. The way a sculptor discovers a figure inside marble. The story of someone walking into death for love was always there, waiting to be told. Every culture has a version. The Japanese tell of Izanagi descending to Yomi for Izanami. The Mayans sing of the hero twins in Xibalba. The Sumerians wrote of Inanna's descent thousands of years before Greece existed. The details change. Different gods, different underworlds, different instruments of power. But the core never changes. Someone loved so fiercely that death itself wasn't enough to stop them. When you hear this story, you're hearing the oldest human prayer. Older than any religion. Older than any language. The prayer that says, "Let love be stronger than death. Let it be enough." Deeper now. The night has settled fully around you, and the story settles with it. Orpheus and Eurydice are somewhere below the dreaming world, walking in their meadow of almost golden flowers. Above them, through layers of stone and soil and sleeping roots, the living world breathes in its sleep. Cities murmur. Oceans turn. Stars burn their slow, patient fire. Orpheus traces patterns in the pale grass with his finger. Not music, just shapes. Circles and spirals, and the slow geometry of a mind at peace for the first time. Eurydice watches him. She remembers the man who could move mountains with a song. She prefers this one, the quiet one. The one who traces patterns in grass and asks for nothing. In the living world, an old woman in a Greek village can't sleep. She steps outside and looks up at the stars. Lyra hangs above the olive grove. She hums a lullaby her grandmother taught her. The lullaby has no words she can remember, just a melody that feels older than language. Passed down through so many mouths it's been smoothed like a river stone. She hums, and somewhere below the earth, Orpheus smiles. Music connects them. The living and the dead, the surface and the depths, the woman humming in her garden, and the shade smiling in his meadow. The same thread, stitched through the earth. The woman goes inside. The melody lingers in the olive grove for a moment, then dissolves into cricket, song and the soft crash of distant waves. Night reclaims its silence. Below, Orpheus pulls Eurydice closer, not because he's afraid of losing her. That fear is finished. Because closeness is its own reason, because warmth is its own song. The asphodels around them are definitely golden now. A small circle of warm flowers in the gray underworld. Their own private meadow. Grown from nothing but the fact of being together. Persephone sometimes brings them things from the surface. A real flower, a handful of earth still warm from the sun, the smell of rain. Gifts from a queen who understands what homesickness costs. The flower dies within hours. Nothing living survives long in Hades's realm. But Eurydice keeps the dried petals. A small collection of the surface world, stored like memories. Orpheus watches her tend the dried petals and feels something unfamiliar. Not grief. He knows grief like his own skin. This is different. This is the ache of watching someone you love miss, something you can't give them. He picks up an imagined lyre, his hands shaping the air where the instrument would be. And he plays, not sound, just the motion. The memory of music, performed for an audience of one. Eurydice laughs. The sound, if shades can make sound, ripples through the gray meadow like a stone dropped in still water. Nearby shades pause, confused by this unfamiliar vibration joy. This is what they built from loss. Not a return to the sunlit world, that door is closed. But something else. A home, a warmth. A stubbornly golden patch in the kingdom of gray. Time passes, or doesn't. In the underworld, past and present and future stack on top of each other like pages in a book. The couple exists in all their moments at once. The meadow scene grows familiar now. Warm, safe, like returning to a room you know in the dark. Orpheus and Eurydice are home, and you are settling deeper into yours. Breathe slowly now. In through the nose, out through the mouth. The story is becoming quieter, the way all stories do when they've said what they need to say. In the living world, night deepens. The old woman's lamp goes out. The nightingale finishes its song. The sea settles into its long, low breathing. Everything finds its rhythm of rest. Below the sea, below the stone, below the sleeping roots of ancient olive trees, the underworld hums with its own kind of quiet. Not silence, something softer, the sound of a story at peace. Orpheus closes his eyes. Even shades can rest, not sleep exactly, but a drifting, a dimming, the way a candle flame narrows before it goes out. He drifts toward something warm. Eurydice is already still beside him, her hand in his, her breathing, if shades breathe, matching the slow pulse of the underworld itself. Two people at rest in the quietest place there is. The golden asphodels lean over them like a canopy. No wind moves them. They lean of their own accord. Sheltering the couple the way trees once leaned to hear Orpheus play. The myth is resting now, let it rest. Let it settle into the part of your mind where old stories live, alongside fairy tales and lullabies, and the sound of someone who loves you saying your name. Above the sleeping world, stars turn their slow circles. Layer among them, 7 points of light, an instrument nobody plays, singing simply by existing. A moth flies past the constellation, its wings catching starlight for a moment. Small things and infinite things, the moth and the stars, sharing the same sky. The myth held both. The waves against the Greek shore count time the way the underworld refuses to. One, then another, patient, endless. The oldest lullaby there is. If Orpheus could hear the waves from his meadow below, he'd recognize the rhythm. All music comes from water, from the pulse of blood, from the crash of surf, from rain on ancient stone. The night breathes. The story breathes. You breathe, all at the same pace now, slow, deep, warm. The myth has done what myths do. It's carried you somewhere safe and set you down. Orpheus would understand this moment, the giving over. The trust required to close your eyes when the world is still turning. It's the same trust he couldn't quite manage in the tunnel. But you can manage it. Close your eyes, or let them close. Trust that the morning will come. Trust that the people you love will still be there. Trust the way Orpheus wishes he could have. The golden meadow glows faintly in the underworld. The stars turn overhead. Somewhere between the two, between the depths and the heights, you are drifting, safe, held by the oldest story. Orpheus's lyre plays in the stars. Eurydice's laugh echoes in the underworld. The two sounds meet somewhere in the middle, in the place where all stories live when no one is telling them. Let them play. Let them laugh. Let the story fold itself into your sleeping mind like a letter tucked into a pocket. There when you need it, quiet when you don't. Psychologists call it the Orpheus complex. The human inability to resist looking back. We check old messages from people who've left. We revisit places where we were happy. We can't help turning. Songwriters know this instinct. Every love song ever written is Orpheus's song, an attempt to use beauty to cross an impossible distance, to reach someone who can't be reached. Filmmakers return to this story constantly. It appears in shapes you might not recognize. The lover who arrives too late, the hero who breaks the one rule, the hand that slips free at the crucial moment. Grief counselors say the myth teaches something true. You cannot bring the dead back by force of love. But you can carry them forward. The music doesn't stop because the musician does. Every time someone hums a melody without thinking, in the shower, in the car, while falling asleep, Orpheus wins. The music outlived the musician. It always does. That's the real miracle. The night has grown very deep now. The kind of deep where thoughts slow and edges blur, and the difference between story and dream becomes hard to find. Let it blur. That's where the best rest lives. Orpheus and Eurydice are becoming part of your dream now. Their golden meadow merging with whatever warm place your sleeping mind is building. They don't mind, they're good guests. The Lyre constellation dims, not disappearing, just growing quieter, the way a parent's voice softens when the child's breathing changes. The stars know when you're almost there. One last image before the story lets you go. The meadow, golden flowers. Two figures hand in hand, walking slowly through the underworld's gentlest field. They are at peace, you can be too. The waves, the stars, the wind through olive leaves. The old woman's lullaby. Orpheus's hum in the underworld. All the same song, really. All saying the same thing, rest now. If you're still awake, that's fine too. The story is patient. It has waited 3,000 years. It can wait a few more minutes, while you find your way to sleep. The asphodels lean. The shades drift. The rivers flow to nowhere. The underworld breathes its long, slow, ancient breath, and two lovers glow golden in the gray, together always. Somewhere, a nightingale sings its last song of the night. Somewhere, a child sleeps holding a book of myths. Somewhere, the morning is already beginning. Not yet. Here it is still night, still warm. Still held by the story of a man who loved a woman so much that even death couldn't keep them apart. Only delay their reunion. The golden asphodels close their petals. Even impossible flowers need rest. Even myths need sleep. Even the oldest love story in the world comes, eventually, to a place of quiet. Golden quiet. The kind that comes after a beautiful thing has been said, and there's nothing left to add. Orpheus is quiet. Eurydice is quiet. Yours. And now, from the deepest place in the myth, from the heart of the underworld where golden flowers grow in defiance of death, one final moment. The moment that makes it all worthwhile. Orpheus opens his eyes. Eurydice is looking at him. Not fading, not dissolving, not whispering farewell. Just looking. The way she looked at him in the meadow of wildflowers, before anything broke. He looks at her. She stays. He looks again. She stays. The simplest miracle. The only one that ever mattered. The look that once cost everything now costs nothing at all. This is what love looks like when it has nowhere left to go. Not burning. Not reaching. Not desperate. Just warm. Just present. Just two souls in a golden field choosing to stay. The golden asphodels glow. The stars above turn. Somewhere between the two you are resting, held by the story of Orpheus and Eurydice. The love that walked through death and found its home on the other side. What does this story mean? Not what does it teach. Myths don't teach. They reveal. They hold a mirror up to the darkest, warmest corners of being alive and say, look. The first truth: love is not enough. Orpheus loved perfectly, fiercely, selflessly, to the point of madness, and it still wasn't enough to undo what happened. Love doesn't fix, it endures. The second truth, looking back, is human. Not weak, not foolish. Human, we are the species that turns around, that checks one more time, that cannot walk forward without knowing what's behind us. Every goodbye contains a look back. Every departure holds a glance over the shoulder. We are all Orpheus in the tunnel, walking toward the future, desperate for one more glimpse of what we're leaving. The third truth, grief is not a problem to solve. Orpheus tried to solve it. With music, with courage, with the sheer force of walking into death. Grief isn't solved. It's slowly, imperfectly. The Greeks understood this. Their funeral rites lasted days. Wailing, singing, feasting, telling stories about the dead. They gave grief room to move. They didn't rush it. They didn't fix it. They honored it. The fourth truth, art comes from loss. Orpheus's music was beautiful before Eurydice. After her death, it became something else entirely. Deeper, rawer, capable of moving the immovable. Every great song carries a crack in it. Every poem that makes you shiver has a loss at its center. Orpheus teaches us that beauty and damage grow from the same root. Always have. The fifth truth, and perhaps the most important one for tonight, trust requires darkness. You cannot prove trust in the light. Trust only means something when you can't see. Sleep asks the same trust. Closing your eyes, releasing control, believing that the world will still be there when you open them. Every night we practice what Orpheus couldn't do. Every night we succeed. The myth doesn't blame Orpheus for failing. It holds his failure the way a parent holds a child who tried and fell. With tenderness, with recognition, with the knowledge that trying mattered. Because Orpheus did something no one else has done, before or since. He walked into the kingdom of death with nothing but a song and his love, and he made the god of death cry. That is not failure, that is glory. And the real end, not the middle tragedy but the final scene, he got what he came for. Eurydice. Together, forever, the long way around, but he got there. That's the secret the myth hides inside its tragedy. Love wins. Not easily, not quickly, not without scars, but eventually, after everything. After the snake and the tunnel and the turn and the river, love wins. Let that be the thought you carry into sleep. Not the turn, not the loss, the reunion. Two people who found each other across the widest distance in the universe. And held on. The night is deep. The stars are turning. The story has said its piece. All that's left now is the quiet. And the quiet is good. The quiet is where rest lives. Orpheus would tell you, if shades could speak to the living, that the best music is silence after love. The hush that falls when everything important has been said. This hush, right now. The golden asphodels dim. The constellation fades. The waves slow. Everything in the story is finding its resting place. The way water finds its level. The way warmth finds the body that needs it. You are safe. The story is with you. Folded small, tucked into the place where dreams begin. Orpheus and Eurydice are with you too. Walking their golden meadow, at peace together. Rest now. The oldest love story in the world is keeping watch. It has kept watch for 3,000 years. It will keep watch tonight. Sleep well. Dream of golden fields. Dream of music. Dream. Orpheus left 3 gifts to the world. The first a constellation. 7 stars shaped like the instrument that made death weep. Lyra hangs in the summer sky where anyone can find it. The second gift the knowledge that music can go anywhere. Before Orpheus, no one knew a song could cross the boundary between life and death. After him, every musician carries that possibility. The third gift, permission to grieve without shame. Orpheus wept before gods and monsters. He screamed at sealed stone. He refused to pretend he was fine. 3,000 years later, that permission still matters. Every love song on the radio descends from his lair. Every poem about missing someone. Every film where the hero reaches for a hand that isn't there. Orpheus started a conversation that humanity hasn't finished. His name means darkness of night. Orpheus from orphan, the Greek word for the dark between stars. Even his name was a lullaby. Even his name was an invitation to close your eyes. The island of Lesbos still makes poets. The grove in Thrace still stands silent. The river Hebrus still flows to the sea. The landscape of the myth persists, waiting for the next person to listen. Somewhere tonight, someone is hearing this story for the first time. Somewhere, a parent is telling a child about the man who went to the underworld for love. The chain of voices stretches back 30 centuries and forward into the dark. You are part of that chain now. The story has passed through you. When you remember it, even fragments, even the feeling, you carry Orpheus forward. You keep him singing. The lyre plays in the stars. The lovers walk in the dark. The nightingales sing near the grave. 3 gifts, 3 echoes. 3,000 years of a story that refuses to end. And that's the truest legacy of all. Not the stars or the music or the grief. The legacy is this: someone loved so much that death couldn't hold the story. Neither can time, neither can sleep. The story is finished now. Let it go the way you'd let go of a warm hand. Gently, slowly, knowing you can reach for it again whenever you need to. The stars are keeping watch. Lyra is up there. You don't need to look. Just knowing it's there is enough. Just knowing the lyre still plays is enough. The waves are still breathing, in and out. In and out. The same rhythm they've kept since before Orpheus, since before Greece. Since before anyone thought to tell a story at all. Wind moves through olive leaves. The softest sound. A whisper from a tree that was old when the myths were young. It says nothing. It says everything. It says sleep. Somewhere below the sleeping earth, golden asphodels glow in a meadow that shouldn't exist. Two people rest there who earned their peace the hardest way imaginable. They are well. All is well. A nightingale settles on a branch, tucks its head beneath its wing. Even the singer needs to sleep. Even music rests. Even the most beautiful voice eventually goes quiet. And the quiet is good. The moon moves. Slow silver. Pulling tides, pulling sleep, pulling the night along its ancient track. It has done this forever. It will do this forever. You are held by forever tonight. Breathe. That's all. Just breathe. The myth will be here tomorrow night, and the night after, and every night you need it. Ancient stories don't leave, they wait. Good night, traveler. You've walked far tonight, through meadows and underworlds, past gods and monsters, across the boundary between life and death and back again. Rest now. You've earned it. Sleep well. Dream of golden fields. And if you hear music in your dreams tonight, faint, far away, impossibly beautiful, that's just Orpheus. Still playing, still singing, still loving. Good night.